Dude, these get harder and harder. At least that's not what I signed up for. And I know if you're watching this and resonating, it's probably not what you signed up for. Only by staying open do we allow the flow of what's true. So I've just parked up at Land of Medicine Buddha, and it is dead quiet here. Please turn the prayer wheel for peace and happiness for all sentient beings by cultivating love and compassion in this world. Lama Zopa Rinpoche. May love and peace reign on earth. It is said that when one hears the clear resonating sounds of the bell, one's troubles are dispelled in the moment, helping wisdom to grow and develop. It also has a profound effect of inducing the thought of repentance for beings suffering in the unfortunate realms. So when I go to ring this bell, the idea is that I make an offering. It says, "Think the purpose of my life is to free all sentient beings from suffering and lead them to enlightenment. Therefore, I must achieve enlightenment, and therefore I am going to make the offering of sound." Let's do it. The first verse for me is about cooperation and seeing everyone who comes into your life, I mean, from people to animals, as holy, because they are so unique, so special. And it's to regard life as precious, and every single being that comes into our lives as totally important in order to get gifted the highest form of transaction, because it is an energetic transaction, right, that you're having with that other being, be it a baby, be it an older person, be it a stranger, be it your grandfather, be it your mom, and just regard them in that holy sense. Wherever I am and whoever I am with, I shall always consider myself the lowest of all, and from the depths of my heart hold others dear and supreme. The second one I find really interesting because I struggle with this idea of putting yourself as lower. Because for me, this whole journey that I've made spiritually the last 4 years has taught me to put myself higher. Because when I used to put myself lower, I would disregard myself. And it's really important to come to this knowing of reverence, and it's speaking on restraint, not to fall into negative or lower emotions, and to regard the other person as superior so that you can have a positive interaction. And so it speaks on restraint, not to fall into these emotions that will disregard the other. Because when you think about it, when you're like angry or sad, unnecessarily stressed, the whole interaction with that person becomes a negative one. So it's speaking to that, not so much regarding yourself as lesser, but to really have restraint in your emotion. I feel like it could be worded different. Verse 3. Vigilant the moment a delusion appears in my mind, endangering myself and others, I shall confront and avert it without delay. So that third one is on the practice of mindfulness, to really stay aware of your inner state before any kind of external interaction causes you a reaction. You know, within you have that ability to just mindfully respond rather than, be quick about it and fall into perhaps a negative pattern that you hadn't identified previously, or any negative assumption. I for sure am victim to this, especially when it really, I don't want to say victim to this, but it happens to me. We're shifting our language, we're shifting our awareness, and it's important to stay humble through this whole process and have self-compassion for the moments that you don't operate the way that you'd like. However, that is exactly the work, being able to realize that that does not serve you and or anybody else, and to address the situation as early as possible within love, compassion, desire for peace, balance, togetherness, connection, and openness, expansion, more positive outcomes. Verse 4, whenever I see beings who are wicked in nature and overwhelmed by violent negative actions and suffering, I shall hold such rare ones dear, as if I found a precious treasure. Yeah, this one's a harder one for those of us who are in transition. It's love thy neighbor, right? And what if the neighbor is showing negative disposition towards you? Then especially, don't get wrapped up in the drama, don't be sucked in. Because then what comes to mind is that saying of like, don't argue with an idiot because they'll beat you at their game. They have more experience. And you're just gonna shift your inner state to lower vibrations, which is not gonna help anyone. So the practice here for those of us who are practicing and aware is, or what if it was, any kind of negative figure that is doing harm and is inflicting damage and pain. What then? To still love them? That is the true work of Christ. That is the true work of Buddha in this sense. Verse 5. When out of envy others mistreat me with abuse, insults, or the like, I shall accept defeat and offer the victory to others. Oof. Yeah, this one's a harder one because it's especially when you are targeted by somebody else and they're trying to appoint you with some kind of negative feeling. Now, what comes up for me right away is it is not yours unless you receive it. And that applies across the board. If somebody says, for example, to you, like, you're such a piece of crap, if you resonate with that, that's on you. Like, if you go, no, I'm not, and walk away, those kinds of insults where you just, like, you don't accept that gift. Like, you open it like, oh, I don't like this, I'm gonna give it back. Like one of, I picked it up somewhere, activation vibration. She was like, oh, that's not for me, return to source. Thank you, not for me. Thank you, no thank you, return to source. So for me, that's the way that I have to see this one, because it's a small loss to just like accept and walk away, in the sense of like, not accept and take it on, but kind of observe and return, deflect, I suppose. It's a great way not to interact with what's being presented to you, and simply keep your vibration as your vibration. And to do so in a conscious way that's the practice. Verse 6, when someone whom I have benefited and in whom I have great hopes gives me terrible harm, I shall regard that person as my holy guru. Dude, these get harder and harder. Yeah, this one's rough. Always sensitivity, as these like mention in their text below, like always sensitivity to the context, right? As long as that other person is not inflicting further harm onto you or anybody else, it's another thing to just kind of take that as a message, as a training ground, deflect and move on, and thank that person for teaching you something. Initially, when I started my spiritual journey, I didn't understand that. Like, thanks somebody for hurting me, like, are you okay? Like, absolutely not. Ironically, I started my journey learning this. The first thing that came to mind when I read that verse was my ex from the UK. We were together for almost 3 years, and he cheated. And when I found out, we broke up right away. That was a rough one, like a rough pill to swallow, because he was somebody who I gave a lot of my time, energy, love, devotion, happiness, too. And we co-created a lot of really beautiful memories. So what do you do when somebody causes harm unto you, especially the person who's closest to you that you least expect it from? I immediately knew that was not to do with me. I immediately regarded it as his karma, not mine. So yes, he was my teacher. He was my great teacher. And I do thank him at my core. Whenever, if ever, still something comes up for me, and I'm like, that still hurts a little. Like I really try my best to sit with it and explore until I get to the other side, into compassion, because it's really about freeing myself. That's all this is ever about. Verse 7, in short, both directly and indirectly, do I offer every happiness and benefit to all my mothers. I shall secretly take upon myself all their harmful actions and suffering. So I'm loving this one because the text below speaks to integrity and how a genuine practitioner requires integrity. It states how sometimes what happens, especially these days, is that people who have only a little experience tend to assume an air of importance or spirituality, which only cheapens one's true experience. Yeah, so not to fall victim to the trap of aggrandizing your ego when you begin this spiritual path. For me, I can feel it when it goes too much into the airy-fairy-ness. I've definitely interacted with people where they're like looking through your soul and they're like, yes, sister. And they're like trying to feel it or make it something that it isn't. And it's like, hey, just be with yourself, be present, be real. And if you're trying to transmit love and purification onto me through your own overflow and you really want to give me that, just be, And so for me, I don't think I've done this consciously enough. I don't have enough practice with this other than just by resonating. Whenever I walk into a room, I really try to do it with the best of my ability and shine as much light as I possibly can and I'm capable of. I can think back to Envision in Costa Rica this year. It definitely made me sick. I do believe energetically I was taking on a lot of darkness and like transmuting. It was just like too much. So learning your limits is important as well. A friend of family said to me once, and I literally almost cried, it made me so emotional. I asked him, how do you learn this? How can you consciously give of your light without being sucked dry? And he said to me, practice when it doesn't count. Practice when it doesn't count. Practice when you're in a room with a stranger that's just had a bad day. Don't try and take on the world. It's not going to help anybody else. It's not going to help anybody if it lowers your frequency. Make sure it's only giving from your overflow. That's something another spiritual teacher told me, only ever give from your overflow. 8th and final verse. Let's see. Undefiled by the stains of the superstitions of the 8 worldly concerns, may I, by perceiving all phenomena as illusory, be released from the bondage of attachment. Ooh, that's a really good one. I have to read you this, it's too good. One of the most effective and convincing ways to understand how everything is empty and lacking in substantial reality is to understand the interdependent nature of reality, which is the dependent origination of everything. What is unique about the understanding of dependent origination is that it provides us with the possibility of finding that middle way between total nothingness on the one hand and substantial or independent existence on the other. The narrow path, right? The idea that things originate in relation to others through a kind of complex matrix of dependently originating facts also protects oneself from the danger of falling into the opposite view of nihilism. thinking that nothing exists. Once you find this kind of insight into emptiness in your meditation, there is a new quality to your engagement with the world because of your awareness of the illusory nature of reality. Yeah, for me, this is obviously the ultimate, releasing attachment. It came through me. I mean, I know you hear this, like the Buddhists say that attachment is the source of all suffering. But I really came to that conclusion a few years ago, and every time it comes back to me, I learn it deeper and deeper. And it's true. You suffer when you have expectations of somebody. You suffer when you have ideas of what could be, or what you would rather, or what to you is painful. Even like a headache. I was talking with one of my friends at home about how you can enjoy pain and be thankful for pain. Not in like a sadistic kind of way, but in a, what is this teaching me? Okay, so right now I have a headache. I need to slow down. I need darkness. I need quiet. I need water. And it's really listening to those pauses that life requires of us. Oftentimes, I find there's no such thing as negative. It's simply a teaching moment. And we wouldn't appreciate those flying high summits if we didn't know those crevices and those valleys. So yeah, what comes up for me there is the constant learning of life. Releasing attachment, releasing what could be, what could have been. Also the openness to feeling. That's been a big part of my story, and I think is for much of humanity, because we're so afraid. We like clamp up and we close, and we don't want to allow ourselves to really truly feel, because we label these feelings and we think that they're too big for us to contain or to even allow to pass through. You don't have to hold on to anything. But that's the irony, is I sometimes use the word hold, because it is your system. Your nervous system does need to be able to feel and filter through. But take the example of the other day, yesterday actually, I was in Big Sur and I was not happy, and I was frustrated. I wasn't happy, and I was like, this is supposed to be the best day ever. And then I stopped and I checked in with myself, and I cried and I released, and I couldn't really pinpoint why I was upset. And then I went on my jolly way and had the best time ever. And life is like that. Like, sometimes you won't be able to put a label on it, a name, or understand it. Maybe you don't have to, You don't have to run it all through the mind. Children don't. They just express. They just feel. And it's not to say we should act like children. Yes, in our innocence. Yes, in our wonder, in our curiosity. I met someone the other day at the church. He was in his 50s or 60s. He said his mother is turning 90 soon. And he said the key that he's noticed with her spirit and her ignition for life is to stay curious. Stay absolutely curious. I actually, God bless my Oma. My grandmother on my mom's side, she was Dutch. That's why I call her Oma. She stayed curious her whole life. Her mind was so sharp. She was the sharpest minded old lady I ever knew. And that showed no signs of deterioration. Like, I'm not getting dementia in this lifetime. She was stunning. And so, yes, stay curious. Stay curious, release attachments. Allow life to teach you. Pay attention. Only by staying open do we allow the flow of what's true. And I have claimed my affiliation to truth over lies, faith over fear. And I am keen to keep exploring that. And of course it's uncomfortable. Of course it's uncomfortable. Seek discomfort, y'all. That's what life's about. Because you'll get an equal reward. They will mirror each other. You have to be willing to go down, to go up again. And if you're just gonna do this, You ain't gonna be feeling some cool ass shit. You're just gonna be living a plain life. And that's not what we signed up for. At least that's not what I signed up for. And I know if you're watching this and resonating, it's probably not what you signed up for. So let's go see what comes next. I love that feeling when you're crossing that threshold where you've stilled your whole body and you can just feel how you can't feel anything in this world anymore, like in this realm. You just go into self to a point where you can't feel that you have fingers or toes. When you start to like cycle the energy between chakras, holy crap, like it feels so fun to do that kind of cycling, and just the power and potential and the life force that I can feel like building in my system is so yummy, you know, it's so rich, and I can feel that power. It felt good to quieten and be with myself for a bit. May love and peace reign on earth